My name is Jeanette, and I want to thank you for joining me on the channel Jane Reads. So today I am doing a combo video, a bunch of things in one video. So we are doing the Exposing My TBR tag, we are doing a book haul, and I'm doing an unhaul of some books. So I had the book haul and the unhaul planned because Anne from In Search of Wonder has challenged us for the month of March to unhaul a book. And I have a few books I would like to unhaul. So I thought, well, I could do that while I'm hauling some books. So I was going to do like an in and out that I've seen a couple other YouTubers do. Then I saw Morgan from Morgan's Endless Bookshelf do the Exposing My TBR tag. And I thought, oh, that fits right in because one of the questions is the most recently added book. And with a book haul, it seemed perfect, so I'm going to do that as well. And in January, Anne's challenge was a no buy month. So I did not buy any books, but I did acquire some books. I like when Kindle is free. And so I'm going to talk about what I picked up in the month of January and what I bought in the month of February. I think I'm going to go through the questions first. I'm just going to skip over that haul question and do that at the end. Okay, so question number one is, how do I come across books I want to add to my TBR? Well, usually authors' newsletters or Instagram with like a new book coming out because I have my favorite authors that I want to pick up their newest books. Then other books, just I see other people on Instagram talking about the book, or I watch YouTube and I add based on that what sounds great or what books people have really enjoyed. Or I also follow a website, Free Christian Books, I think is what it's called. And so every day, or Monday to Friday, they post a bunch of free books that are on Kindle or cheap books. And so I go through that list and look, do any of these interest me? I used to add a lot that way. I'm fussier now, I think. And I don't get as many from there, but that's how I find out when there's like a Stuff Your Kindle Day, for example, or things like that. So that is how I find out about books. Also, if I follow a certain author on Amazon or on Goodreads, then I get notified that they have a new book coming out. So really, that's how I add books to my TBR. Or all of a sudden, I just see something randomly and be like, oh, that looks good. Want to read. Okay, number two is BookTuber Shoutout to the person who adds the most books to my TBR. This one really made me think because I was like, I don't know if there is one person in particular that really gets me adding a lot of books. There's a couple that I add a couple to when I see them talk about it because I don't read a lot of the same as them, or they read, some of our tastes are similar, but then they read fantasy and I don't, or something. So the two that I immediately thought of was Amanda from Book Lover Amanda and Oshina from Oshina Gotta Read 'Em All. Now there are a bunch of others that have also made me add books to my TBR. Number 3, the book that has been on your TBR the longest. Well, back in February, I think just earlier in February, I did a video with the books that have been on my TBR the longest before 2020. I think there were 19 books on that list. So I will link that video below if you're interested. But the 3 that I actually don't have purchase dates for, which means I purchased them before December of 2015, and that is The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde, Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, and Death on the Nile by Agatha Christie. And can you see the theme for these 3 books? They're all classics, which is the reason they're probably still sitting unread on my TBR. Okay, number 4 is your most recently added book. So as I said, I'm going to skip that question and I will talk about my added books at the end. Okay, number 5. Which book am I going to read next? Well, as of today, Thursday, March the 6th, I am going to be starting As Dawn Breaks by Kate Breslin. I'm going to be reading this one physically, and then on audio, I'm going to be starting Rocky Road by Becky Wade. I will be starting this one tomorrow morning, Friday, March the 7th. So these are my next 2 reads because I just finished my physical read last night and I just finished my audio and physical combo read tonight. So that is what I'm going to be starting next. Number 6, your most anticipated book and why haven't you read it yet? Okay, my most anticipated book is Never Fall Again by Lynn H. Blackburn. And the reason I haven't read it yet, this one was released last March or last April. And the reason I haven't read it because I know that this is book 1 of a new series. And I really want to binge read some of the series. Now it's only book 1, so I think it's going to be a 3-book series at minimum, which means book 3 probably won't come out till next year. But book 2 comes out this month, March the 18th. And this is on my March TBR. So I will be reading this one this month. And then Break My Fall is book number 2. So that one will be coming out next. So the reason I haven't read it is because I've been waiting and waiting to get closer to the release of book 2. So I could at least read book 1 and 2 back to back. Okay, number 7. What books have I added to my TBR because of the hype? Oh, I meant to grab this one. It's even sitting on the top. Okay, so one I thought of was In Search for a Prince by Tony Shiloh. I don't know why, but this one, I'm just not attracted to it when people talk about it at first. But then like more and more people were talking about it when it first came out. And then I found it at a discount. So I was like, okay. So I added it to my TBR because of people talking about it. The other one is, what's it called? I've just lost the name of it. When the Day Comes by Gabrielle Meyer. And this is book 1 of the Timeless series. And just the thought of time travel between 2 different large time period gaps. I'm just like, I don't know. It just seems a little bit fantastical to me. I'm not really sure. But I added to this TBR because it was free on a Kindle sale one day. So I was like, okay, that's a sign. So I have added that one to my TBR. But that one, fully because of the hype. Like, people have been talking about that series nonstop. And I have not heard anything bad about it. Number 8 is what books have I added that I knew I wasn't going to read? I don't think I've added any that I knew I wasn't going to read. The one I can kind of think of is When the Day Comes by Gabrielle Meyer. I've added it because it was free. I don't know if I will actually read it. I most likely will read it at some point, but yeah, that would be the only one. Okay, number 9. Are there any books on my TBR that I will remove without reading? I don't think so. If I own the book, especially if I own the book physically, I'm not going to remove it without reading it. I don't think. Unless, there's a couple series books I have that I haven't started the series, so if book 1 is really bad or I'm really not liking, then probably would remove book 2 and 3, or if I have it, whatever. That's the only thing I can think of. Back in December, I did a major unhaul of both my shelves and of my Kindle, and my physical shelves, I did not remove anything that I had not read. And on my Kindle, I think I removed 2 that I had not read. Because again, I'd read book 1, did not enjoy it. I wasn't going to read book 2 and 3. So yeah, the chances of me unhauling a book that I have not read are very slim. Okay, then number 10. The grand reveal of the number of books on my TBR. Okay, so I have my physical TBR, which is the books that lay sideways on my shelf. Then, well, in this section. If they're laying sideways in this section, which you can't even see because they're at the bottom, then that means I've read them. But in this section off to the far side, I have not read them. So I have 3 shelves on my Goodreads. I have my Want to Read owned, which count my physical books, and any books on my Kindle that I have not read. Then I have my Want to Read, which are books that I'm just interested in reading, but I don't own them. So I'm either going to get them through Kindle Unlimited, through the library, or I'm looking to pick them up. And then I have my ARC shelf. So that's just books that I've got through NetGalley or from a publisher. Okay, so on my ARC shelf, I currently have 1 book, which is Break My Fall by Lynn H. Blackburn, which I hope to read this month. And then I have 124 books on my owned TBR. Now that includes the books that I will be hauling, okay? Then I have 84 on my Want to Read shelf that I do not currently own, but they're on my TBR. So that is 209 books. 208 books. No, 209. I was right the first time. And so that is my TBR, 209. But technically, I only own 125 of those 209. And my goal this year was to keep my owned TBR under 130 books. I have no idea why I picked 130. I tend to pick random numbers at times, and that is the number I picked. And I did not start the year that way, but I am doing good at reading my shelves. And so it is getting down, and then I haul and add some books. However, I have added books, but I didn't add as many. So let's talk about which ones I have read that I'm going to unhaul. As I said, I did a major unhaul in December. So I started the year with everything that I did not want was off my shelves and out of my house. Okay, they're not completely out of my house. A lot of them are, but there's some that are waiting for little free libraries. But I need snow to melt to get to the little free libraries, so they're just kind of sitting there. Okay, so I am unhauling 3 books that I read in February. And that is The Marriage Wish by Dee Henderson, The Italian Ballerina by Kirsty Cambron, and Twilight at Mornington Cross by Abigail Wilson. And if you want my thoughts on these 3 books, they are in my February wrap-up. Okay, so for the books I acquired in January, these are all Kindle books, and none of them cost me anything because I wasn't spending any money on books in January. And so the first one is To Bring You Back by Emily Conrad. This is book number 1 of the Rhythms of Redemption romance series, and it is a contemporary romance. I read Justice by Emily Conrad a few years ago, and it still sticks with me that I remember really, really enjoying that book. So when I saw this one for free, I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. And it says, he's determined to confront the past. She's desperate to forget. Broke in more ways than one, the last thing Adeline Green can afford is for her now famous high school crush to descend on her quiet life. Ooh, what's going to happen there? Okay, then book 2 that I got is Forged in Peril by Kendra Warden. This is book 1 of the Forge Brothers Security series. I had seen somebody on Instagram talk about this series, and so I added it to my want to read list, and then it was free on Kindle, so I picked it up. I'm pretty sure it's a romantic suspense following a security firm. And yeah, so I don't really know anything about that book. Then I picked up Refuge for the Archaeologist by Danielle Grandinetti. I have no idea how to say her last name. This is book number 2 of the Harbored in Crow's Nest series. I own book 1 on my Kindle already. I think I got that one for free, and this one was for free. It is a historical fiction mystery set in Wisconsin, 1930. I really enjoy suspense. I really enjoy historical. And since I already have book 1, why not pick up book 2? Then the fourth book was The Snowman's Sweetheart by Shanna Hatfield. I basically picked it up because it was Shanna Hatfield. No other reason. And this one won't be read till winter because Snowman, right? Okay, and then the last book that I acquired in January was Break My Fall by Lynn H. Blackburn, which is book number 2 of the Gossamer Falls series. I know pretty much nothing about it other than it's book 2. Okay, then I purchased physical books in February. Not in January, in February. And I did show these books in a vlog very quickly and said I would talk about them a little bit more of why I've got them in the book haul. So that's what this is going to be. Okay, so the first book is The Wedding Chapel by Rachel Hawk. I have read this book 3 times, I think, and this is definitely my favorite Rachel Hawk. There's a few that I have really enjoyed, but this one is definitely my favorite. It is a dual timeline. We are following a football coach, surprisingly enough, for somebody who doesn't like football, in the 1950s, I want to say. And so we're kind of following his story from when he was a young high schooler or end of high school, early college years, and kind of his romance. And then we go to the present day timeline where we're following a young married couple who are just trying to pave the way in their married life. And the two connect. The grandpa now, who was a young man, and then the young couple make a connection around this wedding chapel and why the chapel was built and how it was built. And I loved the connection and following the characters. Jimmy is the football coach that we're following now in his 60s, 70s, maybe even older, I'm not sure. It's been a couple years since I read it and now it's kind of fuzzy in my head. I just remember really, really enjoying it. And I loved the grandfather. And I also loved the young lady. But yes, I highly recommend this story. Okay, then I picked up the series of Deadly Reunions. So book 1 is, this is by Lynette Eason. Book 1 is When the Smoke Clears. Book 2 is When the Heart Stops. And book 3 is When a Secret Kills. This is one of the very first series I ever read by Lynette Eason, and I absolutely loved this one. This one sticks in my mind so much. We're following a smoke jumper. Yes. Due to an equipment failure, Smoke Jumper is ordered to take time off while the incident is under investigation. So she's returned home to face her past, and now a long-buried secret threatens her future. I remember really, really enjoying this one, so I want to revisit the series. And so I got the whole series. It is romantic suspense. Okay, then I picked up The Letter Tree by Rachel Fordham. I have read this one as well. This is actually the book that introduced me to Rachel Fordham, so I had to have it on my shelves because I absolutely love her now. And I've read almost all her books, not quite, but yes. So this one is we're following 2 people writing letters back and forth and was anonymous for a while. They find out who each other are and we watch the friendship and romance bloom. I loved it. It is set in Buffalo, New York, 1924. Then I picked up Undeniably Yours by Becky Wade. I have also read this book, and this is book number 1 of the Porter family series, and this is one of the very early books I read by Becky Wade. If this was not the book that introduced me to her, it was probably the second book I read by her. It's either 1 or 2, I'm not sure. And I just remember loving this family. And this one, we are following Meg, who arrives in town. No. Yes, she arrives in town after her father dies. She returns home to Texas and meets the guy who runs the ranch, I think. the manager of the racehorse. It's a racehorse farm. Thoroughbred. Why can't I say that word? So yeah, and we just follow the connection between these characters, and I loved it. Okay, now the ones I have not read were only 2 of them. So Meddling with Mistletoe by Liz Johnson. This is part of her Prince Edward Island Red Door Inn series, which is set on Prince Edward Island. And it picks up a number of years after we initially met the characters of the Red Door Inn. I know very little about this because I didn't want to be spoiled, because I read the Red Door Inn series and absolutely loved book 1. And so I want to read this one. So it was on my want to read list, and so I picked up a physical copy. It will not get read until the end of the year because obviously it's Christmas themed. Okay, and then the last one is Just Once by Karen Kingsbury. I love this cover. I really love this cover. And that's what made me like, what's that book about? And so it says, can love find a way, even through the ashes of the greatest heartbreak? In 1941, beautiful Irvel Holland is too focused on her secret to take much notice of the war raging overseas. She's dating Sam, but in love with his younger brother Hank. And Irvel has no idea how to break this news to Sam. And then the unthinkable happens. Pearl Harbor is attacked. With their lives turned upside down overnight, Sam is drafted and convinces Hank to remain in Indiana, where he and Irvel take up the battle on the home front. What's going to happen? I want to read this one. I was very intrigued. So, this was my physical book haul, but all these I'd already read. So I only added 2 physical to my shelf. Pretty good. And then Book Outlet decided that I needed to add this one to my shelf. Tuck Everlasting by Natalie Babbitt. This one was just thrown into my order. And yeah, so I have not physically added it to my TBR numbers because honestly, I don't know if I'm that interested in it. So I have it, but yeah, I haven't written it down anywhere. We'll see what happens. So those are all the books that I have hauled over the past 2 months, the books that I have unhauled, and that leaves me with a grand total of 125 books on my owned TBR. I was going to say physical, but not physical. On my owned TBR. With another 85 that are just on my want to read TBR. However, the 2 books that I'm starting next, one is on my want to read TBR because I'm borrowing it through Hoopla, and one of them is one I own. So I'm working my way down. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video today, and I would love it if you would put a book stack emoji in the comments if you have nothing else to say, just to tell me you were here and made it all the way to the end. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.